Biology, Part 224. Well, early attempts to control malaria by spraying insecticides were often unsuccessful because much of the effort was directed against the wrong mosquitoes. What was first identified as a single species, Anopheles macrophylinus, was eventually separated into no fewer than 6 different species, only 3 of which transmitted malaria. The adults of these species are very difficult to distinguish. Although there are differences between their there are differences between their eggs and larvae and in their breeding habits and behavior. A much more useful approach is based not on structural features but on the idea of a reproductive community, sharing access to the same genes. Collectively, the genes available are referred to as species gene pool. 2 species definitions have been suggested. Number 1, a species is a group of actually potentially interbreeding populations which are reproductively isolated from the other such groups. Number 2, another definition. A species is the largest and most elusive reproductive community of sexual and cross-fertilization individuals which share in a common gene pool. The test of whether 2 types of organisms belong to the same species is whether they normally interbreed in the nature and are capable of producing fertile offspring. The mallard Anas polyanthurus of the pintail Anas acuta are among the commonest freshwater ducks in northern hemisphere. In captivity, these ducks mate and produce fully fertile offspring with no loss of viability even in the 2nd and 3rd generations. In nature, such interbreeding is extremely rare. Although the ducks frequently nest side by side, in contrast, many types of the toad buffer and breed together or hybridize regularly, but the offspring produced are sterile. In both these cases, the organisms involved do not meet the species definition and are therefore classified as separate. On the other hand, the melanic and normal Biston lacuna, which look very different, entrusted freely to produce fertile offspring and are therefore grouped as one species. Some difficulties arise with the geographical separated populations. For example, European house sparrows, Passer domesticus, clearly do not interbreed with the North American house sparrows, which are introduced there between 1852 to 1860. Nevertheless, the 2 populations are very similar and would not be thought of as the separate species. When the time interval extends to the thousands or 10,000s of the years, the situation is much less clear cut. I beg your pardon, please. The species definitions do not apply to all of the organisms, like the amoeba, which reproduces only by a sexual method. However, the exclusively asexual organisms are very much exceptions rather than the rule, and even the bacteria have some method of genetic exchange. You should appreciate that unlike other groups used for classifying organisms, species are real biological entities. The individuals which form the species share a relationship which is quite different in type from that between the different genera and classes. The fact that no one definition of a species can be universally applied does not reflect a weakness in the species concept, but indicates that new species have evolved and are still evolving. The mechanism required for this process of speciation from the subject matter of the remainder in this tutorial as we move along. We'll talk about the geographical isolation talking about the species as we move to the next video.